Where does, in this, as far as this history between the United States and Russia and the Ukraine, where does George Soros fit into all of this?
I don't know.
Hasn't he's funded many NGOs that have been involved in the conflict in the Ukraine, as well as media companies.
Soros to me is an evil man who wants to, change the world to his image, sort of unified to some degree, but he won't be able to see it because he's so damn old.
Right.
I mean, you know his history, right? You know that he was,
to an extent, to a small extent.
He was a young Jewish man who cooperated with the Nazis, and when he was asked about whether he has any regrets, he said, "No, I had to do this to survive."
Right.
It's a cold-blooded individual, and it's raw power. I thought what he's after is uniting all of the Western world in a sort of a collectivist type system. What role Russia and even China is playing in his scheme, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You did a lot of homework.
Well, I mean, I used to always think, you'd always used to see, I would hear people talk about, oh, George Soros is behind, when you would see like the BLM marches and stuff like that, you'd hear people talk about, George Soros is behind this, trying to get people to cause violence. And then when I started watching these documentaries, seeing how he actually did create NGOs and fund media to create dissent in these other countries like the Ukraine, it starts to get deep.
Dissent as far as pro-Russian dissent?
Both ways.
You don't have to create it. It's there.
I mean, not
historically there.
Right.
There's a lot of Russians living there, and remember, I don't know if I told you in this interview, the hatred that Ukrainians have for Russians is based on Stalin's action when he starved 4 million Ukrainians to death in the 30s. Okay, because in those days, a lot of Ukrainians didn't want to be part of the Soviet Union, and
right.
particularly the somewhat wealthy peasants didn't want to be collectivized. So this is what Stalin did. He took the grain away from them, and so the national conscience of Ukraine, of the Ukrainians that consider themselves as part of a Ukrainian nation,
mm-hmm.
Has this incredible hatred for everything Russian. That happened to me when I was still a Soviet agent, and I met some Ukrainians while studying in college, and I was blown away by when we talked about the Soviet Union, how much hate came out of them. So I had to stay away from Ukrainians.
Yeah.
And where was I going with this? And there are Russians living in the Ukraine. So that conflict was there before Putin invaded. It's been going on since the Soviet Union fell apart. And there are some Nazis still living in Ukraine.
Quite a bit, actually, right?
I can give you one proof. I know I need only one piece of information. You know who? I forgot his first name. Bandera. There was a Ukrainian Nazi.
There's like statues of him, right? He's
Stepan Bandera.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Stepan Bandera was born in 19.
Big anti-communist.
Yes, and
anti-Semite.
Anti-Semite, and he led a bunch of folk. I mean, the Ukrainian Nazis were as murderous, even more so than the Germans, and they participated in pogroms and killed Jews and all that. Bandera was born in 1919. In 2019, the Ukrainian government issued a commemorative stamp to honor Stepan Bandera. Enough said.
Isn't that when Zelensky
was not yet in power?
No, he wasn't. Okay.
Was not yet. But somebody high level enough thought it was a good idea to honor this Nazi killing machine.
I mean, it's crazy. It's the amount of power some of those I don't know what you would call them, Nazi militias in the Ukraine that are currently there. It's like the equivalent of it'd be like the equivalent of the KKK having its own sort of military power in the U.S.
Yeah, and so what we're talking about right now is it cannot be found in United States media because it's too complicated.
It is too complicated.
I think the entire Ukraine has been a hornet's nest for forever, and it would have probably been a good idea for the Western world not to meddle in this, because it just isolate it and let it play itself out, because no good will come of it.
But then you see, what's the incentive for the Western world to meddle in this? And what you do see is the stocks of companies like Raytheon going through the roof, and then you see, people that are in government investing in those stocks before this whole thing happens. And
yes, and remember that President Eisenhower, a military man, warned of the power of the military-industrial complex, and that's apparently at work here. We send a bunch of arms over there. They need to be replaced, right? The arms are the money that we give away is taxpayer money, yours and mine. And the weapons manufacturers make more money.
mm-hmm.
Yep, and it's very often when people say follow the money, that's ultimately that dictates where people are going.
Right. Well, I mean, it's hard to predict where it's going to go from here. Obviously, it's definitely becomes a lot more sensitive when we're almost kind of in another Cold War. Are you familiar with? I'm sure you are with this. There was the story of the Russian submarine commander.
Yes.
Who was, I believe, he was off the coast of Cuba.
Right.
And he was given the command to strike.
Yes.
Right. And he said that we're misinterpreting this.
Yes. Well,
what is that? How does that story go?
There were supposed to be 3 individuals who have to agree, or 2 out of the 3. No, 3. Generally 3. But in this case, the commander had override power over the other 2. The other 2 were going. They voted yes, and he says, "I'm not doing it." And this was officially set up that way. I don't know exactly the background. Yes, that could have started World War III.
This one man could have prevented the nuclear apocalypse.
That is correct. And we might well be in a similar situation going forward here.
It's frightening.
Yes.
Terrifying.
Yes.
Well,